Now, again, this is my mother, Gertrude Deegan, Gertrude Dorothy Judd Deegan.
Yeah.
She was married to a man named Theodore at
So
one
it's
time.
Gertrude, Dorothy, Judd, Theodore, Deegan.
And she's here with me, and I wanted to have her on tape because I don't know when the next time is we'll see her. And you just never know, and I want this for the children and the grandchildren and so on and so on. So anyway, why don't you tell us about your birth date, Mom?
I just told you August.
I'm redoing it.
Oh,
Mother.
August 6th, 1914.
Okay.
I don't know what time of day it was because nobody
Where
ever
were you
told.
born? In what city?
Cambridge, Massachusetts.
And you were born to Rose?
Rose Elizabeth Vargas and James T. Judd.
And,
Vargas Judd. My mother's name was, maiden name was Vargas.
and what about, what city were you born in?
Cambridge, Mass.
Oh, you were born in Cambridge.
Uh-huh.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
Oh, I have 5 brothers and 1 sister. I had 2 sisters, lost one.
And
When she was only 4.
her name was Mary.
Her name was Mary.
Yeah. And you were married at the time.
No, I wasn't married. I was only a young girl. I was what do you call it? I was going
Just
with my
speak up a
husband.
little. Yeah.
I was going with my first husband,
Mike.
Mike.
And it was tragic.
Terrible tragedy.
She caught on fire after being out of a tub. You had her all dressed up pretty.
My mother did. Mama had her dressed up. Margie was a baby in the carriage. Mary was 4, and these 2 little girls came from across the street. And the 3 of them, my mother was talking to a neighbor, and I was in the house getting dressed to go to the show, movies with my then boyfriend,
Mike.
and we heard this commotion, and the neighbor next door came flying over the fence and...
Oh. This is the repairman.
Hi. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do you need me for anything, or are you kind of...
Right through the side door?
No, right in the front. I left the garage door open for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 'cause the dog's in there, and she's a pain.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Okay, so what happened then?
Well,
she was
and
all dressed up. And
Mama had just bathed her, and it was pretty. It was just around the 4th of July, and everybody was in a holiday mood, you know. And this man came leaping over the fence, and I heard the commotion. I was upstairs dressing. My boyfriend was down on the first floor. He ran out, and there was the 3 little girls. They seemed to be a flame, and the only flame it was my little sister. Her little summer dress went up in flames. She lived 4 days. And
4 days in the hospital.
I was about 18 years old.
Yeah.
And
That was a terrible tragedy in your
it was
life.
awful. I'll never forget it.
And then you married? Did you marry Mike?
Yeah, Mike and I got married at
What-
St. Mary's Church in Cambridge.
And what year was
That
how
was-
old were you?
I was 18.
At
I was
18.
19, I guess. 19.
And you had children right away?
No, Herbie was born 9 months, 10 months later.
Uh-huh.
I got married in October, and Herbie was born in May, the
May.
last of May.
But I mean, you started a family right away. You
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
wait.
yeah.
And how many children did you have with Mike?
I had 3 with Mike.
And what's their names?
Trudy, Herbie was the firstborn.
Uh-huh.
Herbert, Trudy.
Which is Gertrude.
No, she was christened Trudy
Uh-huh.
because we wouldn't call her Gertrude.
Right.
And she was christened Trudy. And then there was Rose.
Uh-huh.
And so we had the marriage was doomed from the beginning. I don't know. Had a bad time. Everything went wrong.
Yeah.
And
Well, you know, those things happen. I'm just more concerned with your life as a whole, you know, and what happened with you. And so you 2 ended up divorcing, and you married another man,
I married my darling,
your knight in shining
knight in
armor, so
shining
to
armor.
speak.
He came along and he says to me, I don't care if you get 20 kids.
And
I
at
said,
that
I'm-
time you did. You had 3
I
and
had
Margie.
3 and my little sister Margie. My mother had died in 1943.
That's another thing I wanted to ask you about Grandma dying, and what was that like?
Well, it was the most Oh, that was terrible. Mary was bad. But when Mama died, it was on Mother's Day, 1943, and she was only 49 years old. And she went into the Mass General Hospital with a sty in her eye, so we thought. The doctor at home had been treating it, but it just got worse and worse. Then, when she went into the hospital, uh, they by the way, cured her with sulfa drug.
Oh.
So she came home from the hospital, and that night she called me. I took her up to my house because she wasn't still feeling good. And that night she called me and she says, I feel so sick. So I called the hospital, and and I noticed my mother had a very big rash all over her. Face was flaming.
Excuse me. I want you upstairs with that tape on, and don't come down here again. You're interfering.
So anyway, she
She had a rash and she was sick.
that night, the day she came home from the hospital, that night, she called me into the bedroom because I had her up to my house.
Yeah.
And her face was just bright red, and all over her body was this terrible rash. Big welts broke out all over her body. So I called the Mass General Hospital, and they said that to bring her right in, bring her right straight in. So Mike somehow went and got a car, and we drove over to the hospital and kept her. And she just died. She only lived a few days. She died, and her death was caused by the
Penicillin.
no sulfa.
Sulfa drug.
That was very popular that year. They were giving it to the soldiers in the front and everything, pouring it into their open wounds.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's what happened, and Mama died that day.
So how old was she?
She's 49. She
Yeah.
wasn't even 50 yet. She died May, and her birthday was in April.
Yeah. And she looked a lot like Margie, huh?
Oh, Margie is the spitting image
of her. Yeah. Auntie Margie, she's tall.
My Margie's
Your bud.
my buddy, my best friend, and my sister.
Yeah. She's a good aunt too. So then, what about your dad? What was he like? And
Oh, he was just my father was sick for years.
yeah.
He was in some kind of a depression, and he was so good and quiet. He never did a violent thing in his life, and for some reason, I don't know, he just lost control after they moved from. My parents moved from Malden, Linden, which was a suburb of Malden at that time, and I don't know what year it was because I was just a little kid.
Yeah.
There was Jamesy and me and Fran, and I even think Georgie was born then.
Yeah.
And They moved back from Linden into Cambridge, and my father got work. He always worked. He worked in Boston. I think he was a leather sorter at that time. And in that period, he just went into a depression.
Right.
And they, instead of
Well, in those
treating
days, they
him
didn't.
today with these drugs,
Right.
they just threw him into the
Mama,
hospital.
why are those guys here?
They're fixing the air conditioner. I want you upstairs with Melissa now.
Sit.
I'll be up in 10 minutes. So anyway, okay, let's move on. Don't pick your ears on camera.
Excuse me.
That's true Gertrude, though. Anyway, so let's move on now. You married Tom. You met him through a friend?
Oh, that's
I know that's
my
many years
my
later.
marriage to Mike lasted 13 years. On the 13th year, I had it.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, look, we're just going to get, I don't want to ever see you again. Just get lost, get out of my life.
He was kind of a bad husband, not.
Well, he
didn't know how
he was
to
a
be
drunk.
any better.
At that time, he was a complete drunk.
He was a king of his castle.
Yeah.
And didn't know how to treat women well.
And then he, I don't have any ill feelings towards him anymore, but I mean, because he was good to his children,
Yeah. But anyway, let's move on from him. and
So
talk
then,
about Dad. Tom.
right during the war, about 1945, I think I met your father. Oh, look at the chickens.
You go in the house and you dead meat. Check,
Shut
check.
the thing.
Choo, 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 choo,
Get out of here, chickies. Look at they all follow each other.
Okay. Go ahead, continue.
I was, as I said, Mike left and he was living in California. And in the meantime, I was just going along, struggling along as best I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out one night a week with my aunt, who was a young aunt, Dot
You have a
Vargas.
few brews.
And we went to this little local cafe and we had music and stuff. And it was a wonderful time, it was free.
Yeah.
It was free for the first time in my life. I felt wonderful. But, of course, I had 4 children to take care of.
Right.
So I could only go out one night a week, and I didn't have much money. I worked at different places at that time to support myself and the kids.
Right.
And then one Sunday afternoon, I was coming home from a show with a neighbor, and I had known this guy, but I didn't know him, never spoke to him or anything, but I saw this guy all the time. Every Thursday night that I went out, I saw him at the bar with a bunch of